Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank you again for coming today. I'm sorry we're a few minutes behind today with food. As you can imagine, the Petroleum Club has had a little bit of up and down in terms of putting on very small events, and now we're starting to get back with some folks. But we will do our best to get done as close to 1 o'clock as we can. But we're going to give Tim as much time as he wants to take. So please finish your meal as we go forward. Tim Busch and his wife Steph live in Orange County, California. He is a businessman, a lawyer, a Catholic philanthropist. The Busch group of companies includes a law firm, hotel management and development, a winery, and several Catholic nonprofits. His legal work is focused on tax and corporate law and representing religious organizations. His Pacific Hospitality Group owns and operates 12 hotels, including the Meritage Collection, which if you haven't been, I highly recommend. The Meritage Hotel at the very beginning of the Napa Valley is just a wonderful, wonderful place to go as a launching point into wine country. It's an exclusive collection of lifestyle hotels in Napa Valley and other parts of California and around the country now. He's a partner in Busch's Market, a chain of 16 high-end grocery stores in Southeast Michigan. It's interesting, I met Tim's brother, who was the president of Busch's grocery store chain years and years before I met Tim, so the Catholic world is small. Tim and Steph are active members in Legatus, and together with Father Robert Spitzer, they co-founded the Napa Institute, which administers the Reason and Faith Center, using astrophysics to prove the existence of God. Some of you may remember Brother Guy Consolmagno is kind of in that similar world. He spoke to us a few luncheons ago. He serves on the board of visitors of the Tim and Steph Busch School of Business and Economics at the Catholic University of America. Please welcome Tim Busch.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you all for coming. As you can imagine, I haven't seen this many people anywhere inside of a building in at least a year, you know. Our governor follows the science, right? And science in California is that when you have a recall for your position and you're nearing the number of signatures that you need to put it on the ballot, you need to open up the state. That's his science, right? And so he's opening up California, and last week he stopped the total lockdown because he said that I did it, but I can't tell you why because it's too complicated. So anyway, we hope that we're in a different, I was told that you guys are all Republicans. I know you're not all Republicans, but I suspect that most of you are. I don't get a chance to talk to too many Republicans in California, at least that don't admit it anyway, huh? So it's a pleasure to be here, and we're privileged at the Napa Institute, which you can learn more about online. John Meyer is our executive director. Matter of fact, I'm using one of his quotes today. He doesn't even know this for my talk. But the Napa Institute has been a joy. We've been around for 10 years. And our Ecclesiastical Advisor was Archbishop Charles Shep, who was one of the greats of America. And he retired, and so he retired from the Napa Institute. And your Archbishop, Coakley, is now our Ecclesiastical Advisor. So he's succeeding a great Archbishop, and we have another great one. And I went around the country. I spent over a year. You can imagine I know a few bishops, and I interviewed probably 50 bishops and said, who should I appoint as the Ecclesiastical Advisor? And his name came up time and time again, so I went back to those who didn't provide his name, and he said, oh, that would be perfect. So I spent my time because the first 10 years with Archbishop Chaput has been amazing. I mean, he's not afraid to stand up to me and tell me, hey, I don't think we should do that, or yeah, I'm okay with that. So the Napa Institute is kind of a Catholic lifestyle organization, very similar to what you're doing here today, but on a national basis, and we hope international basis. We've actually had a few meetings in Europe. The Europeans are just a lot different than we are as Americans. We have one of the greatest things going on in America, and that's called our lay apostolates. And the lay apostolates are what's evangelizing this country, okay? Unfortunately, as you know, our church, our hierarchical church, sometimes has not been as transparent as it's needed to be. We hope to change that, and I know all of you are working to change that, but the lay apostolates are able to raise capital, they're able to attract talent, and the Napa Institute tries to bear hug those organizations and to encourage donors to support them. You know, somebody said to me, well, you have 75 nonprofits? Why would anybody want to go to a meeting where there's 75 nonprofits in the room? Well, we coach the nonprofits not to tackle people on the way to the bathroom, but it's part of our ministry as people of resource is to support things that we believe in, but only if we believe in them. Not the faith part, but the actual implementation part. So that's a little bit what Napa Institute is doing. COVID has been a terrible thing. For my business, I'm in the hospitality business, we're down 90%. I was with the president of Omni. He just built this monstrosity out here, right? And fortunately, he built it with cash. He doesn't have any debt because he's got an oil well that keeps pumping money. But, you know, his business is down, as is mine, 90%. I think we're going to lose over $100 million. He's probably going to lose $1 billion. Not in that hotel, but I mean in all the hotels that he owns. I can't even understand how we're even alive after losing that much money. Obviously, the government's been there to help us. It's the worst thing I could ever see is taking money from the government. But, you know, when you got 90% of your revenues gone, there's not much you can do. So, and it's serious. I mean, we really haven't had any problems until the last 2 months. We've had more infections, probably 15 times more infections, including myself, got COVID. Now, it was a joke, but I got COVID. And yet, last night I was told one of my 50-year-old employees was not going to make it through the night because of COVID. We went to prayers, rosaries. I went to Mass this morning. They call me. He made it through the night. He seems to be doing much better. Maybe he's going to make it, but keep praying. Victor Lopez is his name. And so, but other than that, it's been basically very simple. And it was curious because we do need a new program. I'll get to my talk in a second, for how we execute COVID. Because, you know, the Archbishop, as he said, he's been vaccinated. So some doctor in the room may correct me, but he can't get COVID again, and he can't give COVID again. So why is he wearing a mask? So it seems like there ought to be some rules. I've had COVID. On the way here in the airplane, I opened up my email from the lab, and it says I have the antibodies. So I was just like, I've been vaccinated, right? So I can go give plasma and cure people. I'm going to do that, by the way. I shouldn't have to wear a mask either. So we'll have to work through those details. I'm not saying, you know, because when we go into church and we're asking people to socially distance, from now to the next 6 months, people that are vaccinated or have the antibodies probably don't need to be socially distanced, so maybe we can expand our church occupancy. In Orange County, we can't meet inside right now. All of our masses are outside. Now, that's not bad in Orange County. It's not like New York City, but I've got an article going in the Washington Post, I think it'll be in next week, you know, really calling the American bishops to get back in church. The case of the Brooklyn case, which was sued and went all the way up to the Supreme Court, basically said we have a right to worship, and it's our right and our privilege, and they can't take it away from us. And the more we genuflect to this, the more they're going to take away. And we started out trying to be nice to the civil authorities. Nice to civil authorities doesn't work. It just gets more lockdowns, more restrictions, and so on and so forth. But I am very sensitive, and I'm very appreciative of those people who really are scared. For whatever reason, they're scared. They have illness, and I respect that. My employees, if they don't want to come into the office, we've been open during COVID, they work remotely. And I respect that. And frankly, I can't believe all the work we're getting done with people working remotely. I never thought it would ever work. So anyway, with the subject today, I haven't ever given this talk, but it's kind of relevant, right? Biden, the second Catholic, as the President of the United States, and the head of the Speaker of the House there is a Catholic. They're masquerading as Catholics anyway. And And I'm reading the papers like you are. He's signed more executive orders, all of which are pretty inconsistent with the teachings of the Roman Catholic faith. And in anticipation of the inauguration, the president of the conference, Archbishop Jose Gomez, who's on our advisory board as well and a dear friend of mine, he came out before the inauguration and basically said, I'm deeply concerned, based on Biden's campaign promises to get rid of the Hyde Amendment and other things, I'm deeply concerned that we are going to have some serious issues here. And if you're following the papers on the inauguration, several of us weighed in, starting off with Archbishop Gomez saying, congratulations, you're the President of the United States, but we have some deep issues, some very serious issues. Anticipating that, he appointed a committee, which your Archbishop is on. It's chaired by Archbishop Veneron, the vice chair, who is to sit down with Biden and talk about these differences of opinion. Now, probably on immigration, we're actually going to have some alignment there as far as the Catholic Church goes. I know in this room, there's a lot of different opinions about how we're going to solve immigration. But we've been messing around with this thing since Reagan exempted everybody 40 years ago, and we don't seem to be able to get this thing resolved. So that may be something we have positive to talk about. But on the issue of abortion, we just took a playboy real estate developer for 4 years who did more to protect the Catholic Church and our beliefs in abortion and many other issues, okay? He did more for our church, who would have thought, it's like Cyrus in the Old Testament, who would have thought, for our church than any president in the history of the Republic. Than any president in the history of the Republic. You know that he personally made sure that Catholic churches were not exempt from the PPP loans. When has the Catholic Church ever been bailed out by the federal government? Well, it was. It was last year, and it will be again if your revenues were down 25%, but I'm sure all of you didn't have that happen to you. Many churches didn't. Many churches didn't. So it's a time of apparent despair, but let's not despair. We are going to be fine. What Biden, if he tries to do this, and I'm sure he will, he's going to be met with our grace. And he's inspired by evil. Nobody can tear down statues of slave owners and then build statues of abortionists? What's going on with our world? If you want to read the opinion of Roe v. Wade, Blackman wrote the opinion. He went to Mayo Clinic for a summer contemplating how he was going to release this opinion and what he was going to write in it. And he came to the conclusion that at this time, science doesn't know if that is a real child. That's what he wrote. But he said in the future, science may tell us differently. Well, they didn't know anything about DNA in 1973. But we know, and the other side knows, that every single fetus has its own unique DNA. Now, I think we should go back to Roe v. Wade, and we may be visiting that, and say, I guess he was a prophet in his own time. He was telling us the future. The future is, we know this is a child. So why do we kill 62 million of them? Okay? And it's going to get ridiculous and more ridiculous and more ridiculous, and abortion happens to be the worst thing, but right behind it is gender identity. I mean, oh my word. And I don't know what happened in the Bostock case with Neil Gorsuch. I still got to ask him this, because he basically used the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which was basically for African Americans, and he's originalist, meaning that he doesn't rewrite the laws. He's very, very happy with his position on that, and he's one of our appointees, and he's been right on all the other issues. But he basically said in 1964, the legislature intended that it protect people of differences, right? That changed gender. They didn't even know about that kind of stuff in 1964. How could it have ever been anticipated by any legislature in 1964? Alito called it preposterous. And those guys were friends. He wrote in his opinion, his dissent, it's preposterous that you could have anticipated that. So that is something we're going to have to correct now that Amy Coney Barrett's on the bench. But so what do we do about all this stuff? Well, I don't want to get depressed, and I don't want to despair. I'll tell you what we have as Catholics is we have the sacraments. And some of us may not always appreciate how important and how real it is. When we receive the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ, either on Sunday or when we go to Mass daily, it's the real thing. That's the Catholic teaching. So for Catholics, we believe that. Protestants don't. They believe it's a symbol. Okay? High Anglicans believe it's the Blessed Sacrament, but most Anglicans don't. And so we have that. And we will receive grace and be able to pursue our lives with that. I've been going to daily Mass for I did when I was in high school. I went to daily Mass, actually since I was in 4th grade. Then I kind of went back to it when I was in my 30s because I saw Tom Monahan from Legatus going to daily Mass and all these CEOs going to daily Mass. I said, I thought you had to work. Well, you got to pray too, right? So I've been going to daily Mass, and I try to figure out, I rarely miss, even during COVID, I've been very fortunate. I have a daily Mass in my office, so that helps. And we've been live streaming the Mass, getting thousands of people to watch the Mass, and every day we have a different priest. That's a grace in and of itself. We have the Blessed Sacrament in my law firm's office. I don't think there's another law firm in the country that has the Blessed Sacrament. This is not an easy thing. The bishop will tell you. Matter of fact, he'll probably talk to my bishop afterwards and go, you did what? Well, it happened because I had in residence Father Robert Spitzer, one of the famous priests in our country, and they said, hey, I got to have Mass every day, and I have the Blessed Sacrament. So when he left to go up to the cathedral, they just left it there, and I kept doing Mass every single day. That's not normal. And when that happens, you have to take that kind of a grace seriously. We have the Rosary. I carry my Rosary around every day, and I try to make sure. I was reading Cardinal Pell's journal, by the way, if you really want to read something fabulous. The first copy is out about his 400 days in solitary confinement. Great read. But anyway, he does what I do. When he wakes up in the middle of the night, he can't go to sleep. He takes out his Rosary, prays a decade, and all of a sudden he's asleep, right? I don't know what it is about this Rosary thing, but it works for me too. Sometimes you might pray the whole Rosary, but Father Spitzer is always telling me when you wake up at night, the Holy Spirit's knocking on your door. And okay, I'm going with that one. Anyway, we have the Rosary, and I think all of us business people, I know the priests do this, but it's really a great tradition. I actually started praying the chaplet. John and I went over to Poland. We visited Sister Faustina's place, and that's an unbelievable trip. We're going to do that again. It was an unbelievable trip. We have great trips, by the way, at the Napa Institute. Everything's first class. The Kentworthys have been with us. They love them. This trip to Poland was amazing. Every Mass, I pray the prayer of St. Michael the Archangel, because it started when you had all this church stuff going on with McCarrick and everything, and I said, we need to start doing that every time we have a Mass. It used to be in the Extraordinary Rite, right? After the Extraordinary Rite, you always pray the prayer, the prologue, and the prayer of St. Michael the Archangel. And so we should be doing that again in our parishes and praying it ourselves if we don't do it in our parishes, because this is a battle against evil. Make no mistake about it. Father Spitzer just wrote a book. He's already sold 10,000 copies in 6 weeks called Christ versus Satan. Ignatius Press, but you can get it online and download it. It's the best book I've read on the reality that the devil exists. And when we say he doesn't exist, then we've lost and he's won. It's real, and the way to protect ourselves is through prayer and through the Mass and through the sacraments. We have the defenses. They're all there. I know as mere mortals, we look at this and go, oh, what, really? I don't believe it. Or, do I really have to go to Mass? This live stream thing has been good on one hand, but it's been terrible because it's translating to good Catholics that somehow it displaces the need to go to church. My kids and my grandkids, I have 8 grandkids. One's not born yet, but 7 grandkids born. They rarely go to Mass during COVID. They rarely go. I'm kind of embarrassed by it. That's why I wrote this article, put it in the Washington Post. I thought maybe they read it in the Washington Post. You're laughing, but I'm serious, okay? And they're good Catholics, they're good people, but, first of all, they have kids. My son has 6 kids, triplets, twins, and a single. 3 pregnancies, ladies. This is the way to go. This is the way to go. 3 pregnancies, 6 kids. He's averaging 2. They're afraid to have another kid because it's going to be quadruplets, right? And by the way, the first time they told me about the triplets was right at the Napa Institute. It's just another blessing. God's going, I'm here. I got you. And but anyway, I took them to a church in Austin. You couldn't believe the looks that they got from the people. Hey, stay away from me, And I've been there 30 years ago when I took my kids to church too. So people, we have to be open. If we want our faith to spread and want our kids here, we got to treat them nicely so the parents want to come back, right? In my parish, where you're in the car and you have an FM station, and then they come around and give you communion. You ever had 6 kids in a car sitting there and they don't know what's going on? They're bouncing all over. I took them once. I said, I got this. I took the grandchildren without my son and daughter-in-law. And my wife goes, we're not doing this again. I'm mauled by these kids. So we got to get the churches, I know you are open here, and get the parents back. And it was I sent the preview of the article to my daughter-in-law, who really runs the show anyway. And she wrote back, she says, we really miss Mass. And I so look forward to getting the kids back to Mass because they learn a lot. And it's hard for them to sit still, but they learn a lot. And so, boy, if that's all that article does, I got my 6 grandkids back in Mass. I'm always teaching them. We have a lot of art in our house, Marians and crucifixes, and I always point, who's this? Who's this? Who's this? My 1.5-year-old knows Jesus and knows Mary and all that stuff. We can start early. So the other thing that I started doing was weekly adoration for 1 hour. Now during Lent, I try to do 2 hours. And I got the entire team doing adoration at Napa Institute. It's great. We sang the prayers. Of course, again, we have the Blessed Sacrament in the office, so it's a little bit more convenient for us. And we have adoration. It's the greatest thing that you can do. If you're struggling, go to adoration and bring a notepad and write down what you hear. I was struggling with the problem the other day, and I went to adoration, and I got the answer. It's Jesus speaking to us. And spiritual direction. I have Opus Dei spiritual director. If you're a person of influence, and if you have people that you're responsible for, a family or employees or whatever, you need a spiritual direction. That's also your confessor, right? Because if you go to confession to a different priest every week, there's no real, it still works, but there's a lack of accountability, right? As a matter of fact, no, you can't go to confession live stream. They do a confession in Orange County. I don't know if you do it here, in the parking lot. So you drive up with your car, and then the priest sits over here, and you confess your sins. It's really embarrassing when he says, "What did you say?" No. I also don't understand, what do you do if you have your wife there? I mean, I've always gone to confession in person, even during COVID. She's always telling me my sins, so I'm just kidding. She doesn't do that. So the other one that my spiritual director, this goes back to grade school. The other one that my spiritual director taught me is guardian angels. I thought that was for elementary school kids, right? All of us have guardian angels, right? And when we go into a tough meeting, you can tell your guardian angel to talk to the other person's guardian angel and things are going to go a lot better. I know it sounds goofy, but it works and it's real. And if you want to know about guardian angels, Google Napa Institute guardian angels. We had a Norbertine priest give a talk there. It's been hit 45,000 times. 45,000 times. Why? Because it's right on point, and everybody keeps sharing it. We have one on the Rosary that's been hit, John, 300,000 times. Almost 400,000 times on the Rosary by Ted Sri. Great ones. If you want anything, just type in Napa Institute. We got more stuff out there than, those are just a couple of them. There's a lot of other things about plenary indulgence and many of the things that everybody thinks Vatican II wiped out. Vatican II didn't wipe any of this stuff out. We just stopped doing it. We stopped embracing it. And we need to bring it back into our lives. That's really what Napa Institute has been about. So there's a little bit about how to avoid despair, but I also want to talk about this is what we really got going for us. Now, everybody says Biden's going to stack the court. I don't think he's going to stack the court. What is it? What are they talking about? How many justices do we have? We have 9, right? I think back in the Roosevelt days, I think there was 6, and they appointed 3 more. Right? That's where you get the stacking the court. How can you do that? It's a constitutional appointed court. Well, there's no number in the Constitution, right? So we've had 9 for a long, long time, right? And so today we have 5.5 conservative justices. One guy, we never know where he's going to go. He happens to be the Chief Justice, but we never know where he's going to go. But isn't that incredible? You know, at one time, we now have an Anglican, Gorsuch, but the rest are Catholic and Jews. The most hated people in the founding of the Republic, and at one time, all we had was Catholics and Jews on the court. How's that possible? Catholics, there was one guy that signed the Declaration of Independence, but basically Catholics and Jews were hated by the founders of our Republic. That's a fact. And now they're very influential. We're very influential in our government. And, you know, we're a constitutional republic. So in a democracy, if 51% people say you can kill white Anglo-Catholics, you can kill white Anglo-Catholics. But in a constitutional republic, we have rights that the majority cannot take away. And those rights, and I would argue, include the unborn child, and I think that will be argued in the years to come. But today, this is why the Trump presidency, I wrote an article about this, was so important. I realize storming the Capitol, all this kind of stuff is in the news today, but there's going to be history books written about Trump and the turning point that he created in our democracy. And the biggest one was the courts. He appointed 3 justices, and other than Bostock with Gorsuch, every one of them have been spot on. And Coney Barrett, I mean, she's better than all of them. Alito is darn good as well. And we're really in for, this is where the backstop is located. And of course, Democrats and people in power know this. But really feel comfort, because over the next 10 years, there's going to be a lot of changes and reinterpretations of law. You know, cases can be turned over. It doesn't happen often, but it's happened, okay? Brown versus Board of Education. You know, these are cases that they were wrong then, just like Roe v. Wade, and they're wrong now. And we're going to see a tightening of the noose. It's going to be very interesting how it goes. Like hospital privileges for abortionists. I mean, they say you don't need hospital privileges. What are you talking about? You can't even put stitches in a person if you don't have hospital privileges. But you can have an abortion, and states are trying to regulate that. So the first line of defense will be the courts redefining a lot of the laws that have gone the other way over the years. And it's not just the Supreme Court. You know, Trump put more federal judges in office in 4 years than Obama did in 8. Now, part of that is Mitch McConnell, right? I mean, he is really incredible what he masterminded through the Senate. But Trump gave him those justices, and they were all named by a guy named Leonard Leo of the Federalist Society. Leonard Leo, this is the Leo court that we have here. He put all those in there. Trump knew nothing about Supreme Court justices, or federal justices for that matter. Leonard Leo fed him every single one of those, a daily communicant Catholic. Daily communicant Catholic. An amazing guy. The other one is state legislatures. You guys are an example, right? You have a Republican, conservative state legislature and governor. And there's a lot more states like you. And by the way, my state in California is going so nuts, it will swing back the other way. It might take 5 or 10 years, but I don't have to pay ridiculous income taxes and be subjected to this other stuff that we're being subjected to. Ultimately, the people will speak, and they will flip back the other way. So stay in with that, the state legislatures. One last comment. I work with a guy from Wichita, Kansas, Charles Koch, and he helped do the Catholic University of America Business School. He's one of the evil Koch brothers, at least that's what they call him. But he's actually one of the nicest, gentlest, most charitable men I have ever had occasion to meet. I've written articles about this, but this guy's more Catholic than most of us Catholics. He's read the great books, and through that, he understands Catholic social teaching as well as anybody in this room. And watch, this guy's worth $100 billion with a B. And he's more powerful than either the Democrat or the Republican Party. But he believes in working with each sides of the aisle. But one of his focuses is state legislatures, focusing and influencing state legislatures and passing laws to reduce regulations and so on and so forth. And he's totally aligned with us on immigration. He's working with the American bishops to reorganize, do an immigration reform. And we were about ready to have a meeting in Catholic University of America when COVID hit. We had to cancel it, but we're getting ready to reschedule that. And I think we're going to have more luck with the Biden administration. Let's find out something we can finally agree with and get something done with immigration, because people are suffering and it's not right. And we as Catholics want to work together. We need to have secure borders. No problem with that. We need to understand who's here and criminals and all that kind of stuff. We can do all that. But we also need to have a way to have people flow back and forth. That's my opinion, and I believe it's the opinion of the Catholic bishops, and it's surely Charles Koch's opinion. The economy will do better with better immigration laws than with lockdown laws. That's what I believe. So with that, is there questions or anything like that? Thank you. They said it was a hard stop, so I wanted to let everybody at 1 be able to sneak out if they needed to, so don't feel like you're going to offend me if you've got another appointment. But I'm here as long as you want. Yes?
So a couple of years ago, you put on a conference in D.C. on the hierarchy. What's been the response to that?
You mean the one on March of 17 after Trump was elected?
No, this was on the hierarchy of the church.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, that was a doozy. Well,
Tim frame for us. What was it?
yeah, the conference was on, it was right after the McCarrick thing, and, I knew McCarrick, I knew Archbishop, probably knew him. I didn't really know all of this, but I've been on the organization with Ken and Karen Kentworthy. That's how I really met them, was through the Papal Foundation. And we were involved, and they were trying to get us, McCarrick being one of them, to fund a corrupt hospital in Rome. So through Pell, the Vatican Bank, which used to launder money for the mafia, was reorganized. Pell did this. And then he reorganized ASPA. ASPA is like the Secretary of the Treasury, right, for the Vatican. So they locked down all of these areas, and the European Union got involved. So what happened, you'll see this Cardinal Bachu, it'll all come out. I've been calling this for 3 years. They moved the laundering to entities that weren't controlled by the Vatican, but were owned by they were controlled by the Vatican, but they weren't in Vatican Bank and they weren't in the ASPA. So anyway, long and short of it is, they were laundering money in this hospital, and I tried to stop them. Everybody lined up against, this is all in the papers, by the way. Everybody lined up against me, and I said, this is crazy. This is total nonsense. And so our goal was to bring, people aware of that. There's a school at Santa Croce called iBlack, and it was set up by Pell to educate mostly third world priests and religious how to better manage the finances. Because there's been a philosophy at the Vatican and elsewhere that transparency is not welcome. We want everything opaque. Transparency is absolutely necessary to prevent corruption. And then we have a school at the Busch School, and we train a cohort of 25 priests, exactly the same kind of things. So in the end, I wish more had happened, but slowly but surely, we're educating and making people aware of the need for full transparency. Frankly, that's why lay apostolates do better, because they're fully transparent. And I encourage, every organization, like Catholic Charities, they don't have to file a 990 because you're part of the religious exemption. I think everybody ought to file 990s and get more transparent, because transparency is what stops people from hiding the ball, so to speak. So that's going to be a quarter of a century to get the church finance reform done, but we're on our way, just like we were with the sexual problem, which has been really cleaned up significantly since 2002, since the Dallas Charter, really. Our problem was finance, and Pell called this. He said, our problem is not the sexual problem. Our problem is we have a financial problem. So that's now being corrected. Thank you, Peter. Yeah.
So just a quick couple of closing comments. Thank you all again for coming today. I'd especially like to thank James and Matthew and ROI Real Estate for your sponsorship. If you are interested in talking about a sponsorship for one of our upcoming luncheons, please stop by and see Lisa or me. Don't forget your parking validation. At the same time, there's some membership forms on your table. If you'd like to take one of those and share it with a friend and invite others, please do so. Our next luncheon is on Thursday, May the 6th, with Congresswoman Stephanie Bice, who's also parishioner at St. Eugene and has kids at St. Eugene and Bishop McGinnis, back here at the Petroleum Club. So one final thing, in about 2 hours from now, the staff of the Archdiocese is going to gather for a little celebration, and I thought you might like to know about it as well. It's Archbishop Coakley's 10th anniversary as Bishop of Oklahoma City. He said earlier, it's hard to believe that it's been 10 years. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon.